Next up, we have Mr. Jim Matheson, who's the CEO of the National Rural Electric Cooperatives Association.
All right, Chairman Graves and Ranking Member Larson and members of the committee, I want to thank you for inviting me to testify on behalf of the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, or NRECA, which represents nearly 900 not-for-profit, community-owned electric cooperatives. Electric cooperatives operate in 48 states. We power 42 million people across 56% of the nation's landscape, including much of America's agricultural economy. Co-ops are owned and governed by the people they serve, and they operate at cost, helping keep electric rates affordable. And that affordability is especially important because electric cooperatives serve 92% of the persistent poverty counties in the country. So I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the vital relationship between FEMA and America's electric cooperatives and explain why NRECA strongly supports passage of the bipartisan Fixing Emergency Management for Americans, or FEMA Act. FEMA's public assistance program is a lifeline for electric cooperatives after natural disasters. Every year, co-ops lose poles, transformers, power lines, substations, and other critical infrastructure to ice storms, tornadoes, floods, hurricanes, wildfires, and other events. Nearly half of electric cooperatives have received FEMA public assistance since 2020. And because co-ops operate at cost, major recovery expenses cannot be absorbed through excess margins. Without federal support, those costs flow directly to rural families, farmers, and businesses through higher electric bills. And on average, electric cooperatives serve only 8 customers per mile, compared to 32 for other utilities. So FEMA assistance helps ensure that sparsely populated rural communities are not left to shoulder enormous recovery costs alone. But this is not just a rural issue. 433 of the 435 congressional districts have had a major disaster declaration in the past 15 years. While the FEMA co-op partnership is essential, it can work better. Funding approvals involving FEMA and state coordination often take years. Paperwork requirements are overly complex, and rules and interpretations vary by region. These delays slow recovery, strain rural systems, prolong outages, and increase costs for consumer members already facing tight budgets. NRECA strongly supports the FEMA Act because it offers specific, practical solutions to these problems. The bill includes reforms that are aligned with NRECA's 5 FEMA reform priorities that would make FEMA faster, more transparent, and more effective for cooperatives and the communities that depend on reliable and affordable electricity. First, the FEMA Act would better account for localized but costly rural damage. Many co-ops serve remote, sparsely populated areas where catastrophic storms may not meet state or county thresholds for disaster declarations, leaving consumer members to bear the full cost of rebuilding. Second, the bill would reduce the time required to receive public assistance. For emergency work, it would establish a 120-day reimbursement timeline so co-ops can restore power and remove debris without facing years of uncertainty. And for permanent work, it would create a streamlined upfront approval process for long-term repairs to critical electric infrastructure. Third, the bill also directs FEMA to reimburse loan interest when co-ops must borrow to rebuild while awaiting reimbursement, including for past storms, helping prevent financing costs from being passed on to our consumer members. Fourth, the FEMA Act would help co-ops rebuild stronger and more resilient systems. Hazard mitigation funds allow utilities to strategically harden or move infrastructure rather than simply replace what was damaged. And finally, the bill adds protections against costly FEMA deobligations. Electric co-ops have a strong record of stewardship of taxpayer dollars, but arbitrary clawbacks years after a storm create uncertainty and they threaten affordability. NRECA greatly appreciates the committee's bipartisan work to include these 5 reforms in the FEMA Act. Rural America deserves a FEMA that's fast, transparent, and effective, and Congress should pass the FEMA Act quickly so rural families, farmers, and businesses are not left behind when the next disaster hits. Thank you, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you.